Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Naeem Mushtaq here. And today we are very much blessed and honored to have Dr. Amineh Ahmed Hoti with us. Am I right? Dr. Amineh.
Dr. Amineh
Amineh.
Hoti.
Okay. All right. Okay. I
PhD.
always call Amineh. Amineh. So this is our second program, right? The first one we did it in Pakistan on your book.
Yeah.
And today now you are in Cambridge at the moment,
Yeah,
and
I'm in
I'm
the
in
UK.
Islamabad, Pakistan. And how is the weather there in your place?
The weather in Europe is very good. It's because of global warming. We
Mm,
have a much sunnier
mm.
weather. And I want to thank you, Dr. Saab, for inviting me and for doing this show and for allowing me to share some of my ideas with you.
Well, lovely. It's always good to have you because, I always get a lot of creative ideas and creative perspectives on life, Pakistan, and the scholarly life. For those who are, for those people, like some of my viewers are new now, and they don't know most of my guests. They have appeared in the past. So maybe we can start with your brief introduction. Tell us something about you.
My name is Dr. Amineh Hoti. I see myself as a global citizen, but I have links to Pakistan, to South Asia, to the UK, to the West. We've done research across the Muslim world. We've done research in Europe, in 9 European countries. I've
Mm,
also been to Indonesia for research on a major research project, which I would like to talk about later. So
lovely.
I'm really a fieldwork scholar, and we can
Mm,
explore some ideas. I'm also at the University of Cambridge, at Lucy Cavendish College, and I'm a governor of St. Mary's School, and I'm a professor at the University of Nottingham. And I'm
mashallah.
also a visiting professor at BNU, at Pakistan's Beacon House National University,
Ah,
which,
mashallah.
which is a recent appointment.
Wow, mashallah, mashallah. And I know you have done a lot of work in interfaith dialogue as well. Peace
Ji.
activities and interfaith dialogue, and especially Jewish Muslim and Christian Muslim dialogue. So whatever you
Ji.
told us is just a little bit of your introduction,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
So I was thinking maybe we can just start with the discussion. This is a casual conversational style discussion, not a formal interview sort of a thing. I was thinking about the current situation in Pakistan, the challenges in Pakistan, especially challenges faced by Pakistani living in Pakistan and also abroad. So just give us your point of view or maybe scholarly input on how to handle what are the challenges, first of all, and how we can handle these challenges.
Well, that's a very good question, Dr. Saab. First of all, the huge challenges right now in Pakistan, within Pakistan, how women are perceived, how women are treated, how minorities are treated, how the wider community sees itself, how the world sees Pakistan. So there are different dimensions and different dynamics. Then there's also another dynamic and dimension, which is Pakistan's relations with its neighbors. And that's
Hmm.
something, that's very prickly at the moment and needs to be developed. So these are different focuses. And it needs a lot of thought and scholarly work to focus on all these different
Hmm.
dimensions. So these are some of the challenges. Of course, we have the political challenge as well. We have, such a rich culture, such a rich, diverse culture on which I've written a book, and I'd like to explore that with you. It's called Gems and Jewels, the Religions of Pakistan. It focuses on the 10 religious communities of Pakistan. And we see such a huge diversity. The
Just a
key
minute.
challenges at the moment that we have in Pakistan
Hmm.
are how we treat ourselves and
Hmm.
how we treat the other,
Yeah.
how we treat our women, our minorities, our neighbors. How do we see ourselves? How does the world see us? These are huge challenges. How do we
Hmm.
our youth? We've got one of the biggest youth populations in the world in Pakistan. And we've got a very intelligent youth. Dr. Saab, I taught at FC College, I've taught at Air University, at NUST, I've given lectures, and now at BNU, I look forward to engaging. And I know that Pakistan's youth is very intelligent. They have lots of ideas, they have lots of potential, but they need the platform for peace building, for ideas, for engaging, for standing up, for understanding their heritage and what they are really about.
Yeah.
So all that is missing, and we can explore those ideas.
Lovely. And what I see that according for the Pakistani youth, they are full of talent, built-in talent. And the only problem we have, we don't have a system where we could, polish this talent. So we have to leave Pakistan, go outside Pakistan, polish our talent, and then use our talent for the nations. This is another challenge we are facing. Like
Yes,
being
sadly,
being in Pakistan is living in Pakistan is itself a challenge.
yes, sadly, reflecting on my own life, when my father, Professor Upbea Ahmed, who's done a lot of work on Pakistan, he's written many books, he made the
Mm,
Jinnah film, etc. When he was posted in his early years in Waziristan, I was a very little girl. And at
mm,
that time, there was no school. So I was really sitting under a tree with a takhta and a pad and, learning Alif Be Pe. So that was my first school. There was no desk, there was no chair, there were no walls, etc.
mm,
So from that, he was then a few years later posted to Princeton and Harvard. And then
mm,
from there, I went to the University of Cambridge. So that whole journey for me was such an inspiration. But I was privileged to leave and to explore the wider world, and then to bring that knowledge that I studied and taught at the University of Cambridge
mm,
back to Pakistan, and then to teach that at FC College. So one of the things that I did was to do my, because I had come across some books on my area from
mm,
Swat, where I am from, where my mother's from. And later I married into a Mardan family. So
mm,
this is the KPK. And I was engaging with a lot of literature that didn't portray the image of women correctly.
mm,
So for me, that was a huge challenge. And I said, when I do my PhD or research, I'm going to relook at this field from my perspective and from the inside out, and
mm,
also give dignity to the people locally. Because a lot of Europeans who came, who were men, would study the society, but would say that, oh, women are ghost-like, women are unimportant, they're secondary. So that was a
mm,
huge problem. And in my subject, social anthropology, sometimes they would say, oh, they're the other, or they would use the word the savages, or they would use a derogatory word. So when
mm,
I studied, I wanted to give full respect and full dignity and bring out their own voice in their own field. So that was some of my journey. So I did my PhD at the University of Cambridge. And then later on, when I became director
mm.
of a center where we worked with Muslims, all the Abrahamic faiths, the Ahle
Abraham.
Kitab,
Mm,
I worked with all the three Abrahamic faiths. And I could bring some of those ideas, like I'd worked closely with the chief rabbi and his work on the dignity of difference. And I found that concept so useful because, yes, we have things in common, but we also have things that are different in our communities. And there's dignity in that. It's okay to be different. It's okay to disagree. But as long as we do it with respect and with a sense of, adab, like our
mm.
culture has a
Yeah.
sense of adab or propriety
Mm,
or decency. And I really loved that concept and I wanted to bring it in the subject. So in my subject, social anthropology, I
mm,
took that and made it interdisciplinary. So I
mm,
combined it with religious elements, ideas of interfaith. So, just combine it, peace studies, etc. And so offer that to students at FC College in
mm.
Lahore. And that worked out really well, Dr. Saab, because we had students who had joined the Lahore University. This is one of the most popular university, and it predates Pakistan. Some of the presidents of both Pakistan and India have come from FC College, and some of the leading figures.
Yeah.
So here were young students, 20, 21-year-olds, who were saying things like, we don't accept people of other faiths. And they themselves came from tribal areas or from periphery of Pakistan. But by bringing those ideas to FC and to forming a structured class, which is really needed, I feel, in schools and universities, we were able to transform the mindset of these kids. So after we studied about women and women's rights and gender and ethnic differences, religious differences, and we talked about the dialogue of civilizations as opposed to the clash of civilizations, these same students who disagreed with dialogue at the end said, yes, we want to learn, we want to read, we want to write. So that mindset change for me as a professor, as a teacher, was something very special. And I feel that's what's needed in Pakistani universities and Pakistani schools, and also in policy.
I think that book, the course you're mentioning now, is also published in form of a book
Yes,
from
yes,
Oxford
you're right.
University. I have the copy, I think. Yeah.
Yes, so the book that I did was called Sorrow and Joy Among Muslim Women. And that was based on my PhD thesis, published by the University of Cambridge. And then later, I did another 2 sets with my team from FC College. And those were on teaching acceptance and accepting difference. And those were for teachers and for students, and really highlighting the dialogue of civilizations.
When it comes to teaching acceptance, I mean, you are teaching the students in the class, and when they go outside the university, they look at their religious culture, political culture, and culture as a whole. So the acceptance is not that much available in our society due to certain, political reason, mainly political reason. And sometimes the religion is being used by politics to maintain power divisions and all those things. How do you maintain the balance in the class culture and outside class culture? How do you make sure that when they are in the society, not in the class, they keep on remembering what they have learned in the class?
Yes, well, that's a very good question, because we have to, as teachers, step back and remind the students about the culture they live in and come from. Because the culture is a very rich culture, it's a very diverse culture. They really come from a culture that is South Asian, which means you have so many different religions, you have so many different ethnic groups. And so if you remind them that you are already in this beautiful, it's like Iqbal said, it's like a garden. It's a beautiful garden with many, many flowers. Now imagine this garden just had white flowers. Would that be interesting?
Yeah.
No, but because it has these beautiful diversity. And then again, the religion, all the religions, including, the Quran and Islam,
Yeah.
and Christianity and Hinduism and every religion and Parsi and Baha'i, all of them talk about diversity, talk about the different languages and ethnic diversity that God made. And that's something to celebrate. He said, I made this so that you may know one another.
Exactly.
So if there's that in theology, we have that in our culture, and we have this fantastic, this rich diversity of communities who we're living amongst. And yet we tend to forget, because as human beings, we have this ego. We have this very selfish me, this concept of me and just, my perspective. And by much later, Dr. Saab, I wrote a book called Gems and Jewels, The Religions of Pakistan, which you know about.
Exactly.
And for that book, I did lots of reading and research and study. And I read about Shah Abdul Latif Bhetai's book, the Shajo Risalo,
Mm.
which was a beautiful book.
Mm.
And in that, he talks about the 7 queens of Sindh.
Ah.
And all the stories focus, even Waris Shah, for example, he
Mm.
wrote Heer Ranja. And all
Mm.
these
Yeah.
stories focus on the female voice.
Mm.
Female is the protagonist. She's the
Mm.
main hero of the story. And she's bold and brave, and she's focused on her goals, etc.
Mm.
And again, the whole story is a symbol of the believer on the path, on this difficult journey of life, where she's overcoming her ego, because the hard part is the ego. So, but once that is overcome, then she achieves that divine or special status. And so for
Mm.
my book, I was reading those beautiful stories, which were really inspiring to me. So I thought, here is wonderful material for
Mm.
Pakistani students, for Pakistani professors, but also heroes. They're heroes from our culture who talk about diversity, who talk about the differences, who talk about respect for the other, who talk about inclusiveness. So these are also theological concepts, but they're also theoretical, and they're
Mm.
within the culture. It's not like we're imposing a foreign concept on local culture, but it is within the local culture that
Mm.
these beautiful stories and knowledge-based these were scholar saints who wrote about this, and they're there. So it's for us to discover them and to bring them to the fore.
So I could say, like, I mean, when I'm listening to you, it's like a universal culture which is known as Sufism.
Yes.
So what you are talking about, because mostly our commentaries on Holy Quran, they are written from a theological perspective, focusing on theology with also focus on God or the formation or the structure of religion. But when you come to Sufism, they start focusing on human beings or on man from a God point of view. And I think your approach, which I can see, is teaching acceptance is approach adopted by Sufis. And I mentioned in your previous interview, you also mentioned something about Saido Baba, if I'm right.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Tell us something about your this tradition. So,
So Sedu Baba was my great grandfather or a great great grandfather.
see, you have
My
a
mother,
Sufi genealogy.
yes, yes. So that's from my mother's side.
Okay.
So, Sedu Baba is a title given to him, but he was a very special person who sat by the river Swat. And Swat, which is in northern Pakistan, as many of you know, it's a beautiful place. And in fact, the Queen of England, the former Queen of England, Queen
Mm.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
visited in 1960s.
Mm.
And she loved it so much, she said, this is the Switzerland of the East. And she
No doubt.
stayed for 3 days with my great grandfather, who was the king of Swat, was the Wali of Swat. So they prepared special rooms for her.
So you are
And she,
from two different background. One is the Sufi saints background, and the other one is a royal king's background.
well, they're both from the same line. I'll
Yeah.
explain it to you.
Yeah.
They're both from my mother's side.
Mashallah. Mashallah.
And so the saint, Sedu Baba,
Mm.
sat by the river Swat and he helped the people, but he was also Allah Wala. He was like,
Yeah.
he was beloved to God and he served the people. He would feed them. He's got this huge spoon and daig still in the mausoleum in Swat. And that's something to see. If any of you go to Swat, please see it and enjoy those beautiful, items that can inspire us today. Because that's something I love to do also when I'm in my car or just in
Mm.
Ramadan. We had gone somewhere and I saw a lady at a time when the fast was breaking and I just jumped out of my car. I gave her dates and, gave her some ayran, shomle,
Okay.
or the lassi. So
That's
I
it.
love to do
Mm.
those little bits. That really inspires me, that sense of reaching out to humanity. And Sedu Baba did it in a much more multiplied way. He gave food and charity to people, and he dedicated his entire life to the poor.
Just
And then
like
he sat
this is a
down.
like a royal sense of sharing what you have, and I would say this is a standard tradition in Sufi tradition in all silsilas, Qadri, Naqshbandi, Sohrawardi, and they all focus on giving and sharing. This is the foundational theology of all their teachings.
That's
Regardless
interesting.
if you are Hindu or Christian or whoever you are, as long as you are created by God, whether you are an animal also, they love to share and serve and give. This is the
Yeah,
entire philosophy. Right now,
yeah.
unfortunately, our culture is more focusing on what do I get by doing
Mm.
this.
True,
I was
true.
thinking
Good.
we will definitely. I'm planning to go to Sawat and visit the shrine of Sedu Baba and also his surrounding and to cover his story also, inshallah. Another question I was thinking in my mind: you are teaching outside Pakistan, and in your class there are students from different nationalities, and then there are students from Pakistan also, and you have also experience teaching Pakistani students in Pakistan. So I have one question with two parts. Number one part is when you teach students in Pakistan, what do you see their vision, what is their focus in learning? And the second part is when you teach students outside in your Pakistan in your class, and then there are Pakistani students, there are British students, there are students from different nationalities. And what is the difference you see there in those students sitting outside Pakistan? Do you think there's any difference?
That's a good question. Recently, Dr. Saab, as I told you, I'm governor of EDI, of diversity, inclusivity, diversity of a school in the UK. What I did was I combined the senior school girls in this school
Mhm.
over Zoom with girls from Pakistan's Fatima Jinnah University.
Okay.
We did a set of peace building classes.
Mm.
And that worked out really well. So we gave them a concept of empathy, diversity, dialogue, not debate, etc., etc., and
Mm.
taught them all of this. And then we got them to share their heroes. And then they talked about their perspectives. And I thought that that combination of bringing together through those bridges, see, combining the school in Europe, a school in South Asia, just giving that bridge with
Mm.
even different classes, because one was a university, one was senior school, but just that combination for me was so powerful, and for them, so they enjoyed it tremendously also. And I found that the children, all of the children who I interacted with in Pakistan, whether it was at FC or Air University or Fatima Jinnah or BNU, I gave a lecture there too earlier,
Mm.
all of them, or NUST, they were all very intelligent. They were all very enthusiastic. They were very polite. And they were really craving or thirsting for these sort of platforms where they
Mm.
could think about, how to perceive themselves, who are their heroes, how do they interact with their neighbors, how do they interact as global citizens. So all these questions are there, but sadly, there's no program that I've seen that tackles all of these issues. And I, to some small extent, I introduced that. At FC, I gave a couple of talks at Air University on but instead of giving long 3-hour lectures, I would get the students to, for example, in this one case at Air
Mm.
University, I got them to do a play from the Shahjo Risalo. So we did Soni Mahiwal or Sasi Pannu, one of those plays, and the
Mm.
kids loved it. The boys and the girls, they took out their chashma and they started acting and they loved it. So they went away with
Mm.
the core concepts of the book, and they had grasped what was diversity, what was gender, what was the female perspective, but not through a boring lecture, but rather
Mm.
through their own involvement in it. And so that's something that I love to do, where I see taking education, but thinking out of the box. How do we
mm,
get these students involved? Because they're the leaders of tomorrow and they have so much potential. And again, go back to Qaid-e-Azam and his vision of Pakistan. And he
mm,
said some very solid, strong things about Pakistan. It's got so much potential. It's got such a huge youth population. It's got this tremendous cultural diversity. But what have we done with it? You can
mm,
still have this mentality that I can or it is possible. And when you have a positive mentality, I mean,
mm,
even if you're given a completely messy garden, let's say, for example, let's take this as a metaphor
mm,
that you're
yeah,
given a totally messy garden
mm,
and you've got rocks here and you've got mud here and everything, but you have a mindset that says, yes, I can change this. I can make it beautiful.
mm,
Tomorrow you can work from today to tomorrow and just change, transform everything. Put flowers, manicure the garden, etc. Do something that's creative. But if you
mm,
say, oh, I can't do it, ye to Pakistan hai, whatever happens, you say the sentence, ye to Pakistan hai. You hear this very
mm,
commonly. What
yeah,
does this mean? It's self-defeating and it's very negative. So
mm.
that's got to stop. The first step is to have a positive mentality and then work towards your goals.
And the second part is when you're teaching outside Pakistan and there are Pakistani students, how do you see them?
Well, often when I'm teaching outside Pakistan, I'm teaching students, for example, I interacted with, yeah, I did a recording for the University of Nottingham. Then I taught students at this school. And
Mm,
again, they're very open to ideas. But prior to these sessions that we did,
mm,
they had not got a clear idea on what South Asian, Pakistani, Muslim culture is. It's
mm.
often a very black and white image that you get from the media. And the
Okay.
media does not give you a complex scholarly picture. So
Mm,
that's something very challenging because that affects the communities in the West. And
mm,
that's got to be challenged in a scholarly way that we've been doing. But I'm doing it on a very small scale. My dream is that we set up the center. I'm working on a center in Pakistan, and
okay.
it's a center of excellence.
Oh, okay,
And
mashallah.
it's in Islamabad. And one day, my dream is to develop that. We have a land, we have the idea, we have a structure, we have a design in place, and it's a beautiful historical place. And my
Mm,
dream is that we develop this as a center of research, a center of thinking, a center of scholarship where young people can come and develop those ideas and move forward and not just talk about the material, not just what I'm gaining, but what I can give back.
mm. What I was thinking is this that these ideas of yours that we are talking about teaching in the classroom in Pakistan, your presence in the class and your presence in the university, this is an exceptional opportunity for the students. We as the government, we are not converting these ideas into curriculum and policies because maybe the priority is not to develop future leaders and so that the power politics remain the same. But outside Pakistan, I can see these unique ideas are the part and parcel of curriculum and university policies and procedures because they pick up future leaders from these institutions. So there outside Pakistan, educational institutions, they are sort of not only a policy makers, but they are also leadership. They're producing leadership for the politics, for the theology, for the culture, for the society. And I think this is the main difference. That's why we have a lot of difference. And the university you mentioned in Pakistan, those are FC College, NUST, and all the other. These are elite class universities. Getting education there costs a lot of money, and if your parents are not rich, you cannot afford. But majority of other universities where the majority of Pakistani youth are going there, there is no such, these policies or concepts of empathy or dialogue and all this. We are producing extremists, and the curriculum you see that like we are only Muslims are going to heaven and the rest of the non-Muslims are going to hell. This is kind of approach we have, which is very
Well,
difficult.
you've raised a very important point, Dr. Saab, about the curriculum and about the government.
Mm,
I know that in the past, the government has attempted once or twice to introduce new ideas, but it's not consistent, sadly.
exactly.
It's where the government comes in, you have to have a government that thinks of the country, not your pocket.
Exactly.
Because if you're only going to think of your pocket, it's fine. Do whatever you want, but then
Mm,
that's just for you. But if, in the long term, you won't survive either if the country
mm,
is not. So
exactly.
you have to work for the country. You have to work for education. You have to work to improve the structure.
Mm,
And what this work is about, it's about the social sciences. It's
mm,
about ideas. It's about, for example, one of these scholars, his name was Emil Durkheim. He was a sociologist, and he described society like a brain, the muscle, like the Hindu concept.
yeah,
But the brain of the human body, so if let's say society is the human body, then the brain or the mind are the scholars. Now, these scholars, I'm not talking about engineers or doctors. I'm talking about thinkers. I'm talking about
mm,
Allama Iqbal. I'm talking about, people of action, of the saint scholars. So
exactly.
those are the people who will inspire, because ideas are like seeds in that garden that I'm talking
Mm,
about. And those ideas can really propel the generation forward. And that's what we need. That's why we need the center of excellence. We need, like you said rightly, the government to step in firmly and say, look, we need to introduce a program like this. Let's get, these scholars. Let's get Dr. Naeem or Dr. Hoti or whoever, but get a team of people and
mm,
introduce a set of ideas like this to all our schools and to all our universities. And
mm,
then you just see in a couple of years, the whole landscape will change,
yeah,
because you'll have people of excellence. They'll want to be the best in their studies. They'll want to be the best in achieving, and they'll transform the land in no time,
exactly.
because the land is because of people. And the people are the most precious. What is the most precious thing that you, for example, in your worship bow? It's
Mm,
your intellect.
exactly.
The intellect is the most important thing in a human being. And that's what work needs to be done on that aspect of the human development.
Mm. Okay, ma'am, tell us something about your journey to Europe. There was a project Islam in Europe, and there is a documentary. You are also in the documentary. You visited Bosnia and other countries. So, how do you see the concept of Ummah when you see the Muslims living in the East and Muslim living in the West? And the challenges are different, the mindset are different, the cultures are different. Only one thing is in common, that is Islam.
Mhm.
So what do you think that being a Muslims living in the East, especially for the youth, when they go to the European country, and they meet Muslims there, and sometimes they are thinking their Pakistani culture is a part and parcel of Islamic theology. So they are not willing to leave their culture, and they are not willing to accept other European culture. So how do we develop this universality of mindset, which is acceptable in Islam in its origin?
So thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your question. First of all, in the East, I think we have a very glamorous image of the West,
Mm,
because it is mainly based in
media
what
news.
we see in media or the
Exactly.
television or films. So
Exactly.
that's a very glamorous, very black and white image, and it's not true.
Exactly. I agree
When
with
you
you.
come when you come to the West, you see many pluses. You see fantastic universities, schools, hospitals. You see a very structured system. So all
Mm,
those are huge pluses. But for Muslims living in the West, increasingly in this day and age, it's a huge challenge for them and for their children, because
Mm.
there are multiple things happening. As we saw in the projects that I participated in, they were
Mm.
led by Professor Ambassador Akbar S. Ahmed,
Mm.
who is also my father,
MashaAllah.
um, and who led the project with a whole group of students of his from the American University.
Mm.
So he did multiple projects. One was Journey into Islam, which took us across the Muslim world. Then was Journey into America, which was again looking at all these American states across, America, and looking at
Mm. Mm.
different perspectives, different dimensions, but also looking at the Muslim populations within America.
America.
And then we did Journey into Europe, which took us across 9 European countries.
Oh.
And for me, that was so interesting and so amazing, because we looked at, for example, Srebrenica when we went to Bosnia.
Mm.
There were so many Muslims who were caught and killed.
Yeah.
And then we went, which was such an awful and sad situation. And they were only killed because 500 years ago, someone from a similar religious background
Yeah.
came to this land. And so these people were taking revenge for that 500 years ago
Yeah.
on people who have got nothing to do
Do
with
with it.
who these people are today. And that's such a toxic idea. So, which I
Mm.
want to hold in mind and to work against. So that's one thing that we saw. Then we visited the concentration camps in Auschwitz,
Mm.
and Dachau, which was when they caught the Jewish population and they
Mm.
exterminated them. We went into the gas chambers, and they were so sad. They literally made me cry when I saw those piles of bodies, starving and annihilated, literally, men, women, children. And that, of course, it's a reflection of what the community said, never again. But it's
Mm.
still happening now, right now, in this day and age, where little kids, mothers, children are being affected by huge war machines and terrible
Mm.
stuff that's happening
Yeah.
at the moment. So we
Mm.
saw in Europe then that there were lessons for today. We saw that all these terrible incidents happened in the heart of Europe. For example, Srebrenica, where Muslim populations were killed simply because they belonged to a certain religious community. We saw Dachau, where Jewish populations were killed simply because they were Jews, which was,
Mm.
again, these are terrible things that humanity has done to itself. But then we saw the positive. For example, we saw wonderful examples in Spain. When we went to Spain, we went to Al-Andalus. And there
Mm.
we saw a fantastic golden age. And this civilization was something that is very special, not just to Europe, but to the world. So we
Mm.
saw the concept of where Muslims, Jews, and Christians could live together.
Yeah.
And they called it La Convivencia. So that was, they were living in peace and harmony together. There were
Mm.
people from the Jewish faith, for example, Moses Maimonides, who was the chief surgeon to a Muslim
Mm.
ruler. So there were examples like that where Muslims, Jews, and Christians respected each other under Muslim rule at that time. And so that's something that is very positive for us, that's a yes, let's do that. And let's say Srebrenica or Dachau is no, let's not do that. So these are lessons we can learn today and teach them for our children in university, in schools, to say, yes, this is a good example. No, that's a bad example. So
Mm.
for us, Journey into Europe was fantastic. It was a really good project because we were able to interview very smart people, for example, like the president of Bosnia,
Mm.
Dr. Haris Salajic, who's another very inspiring figure. And he said, he made a very good point. He said, you judge a civilization by how they treat their minorities. So
Oh.
if you treat your
Mm.
minorities
Yeah.
well, then
Mm.
you're a very good civilization. And if you don't, then you need to relook at yourself.
Mm.
So that's a very good question, not just for the West, but also for Pakistan, for India at the moment. How is India
Exactly.
treating
Mm.
their own minorities? How is Pakistan treating their minorities? How is, for example, Pakistan just let go of a huge number of Afghans? They too were the minority in their country, but how did you do it? Did you do it with dignity, with respect, or did you ask them to leave? You know, our culture has a very beautiful concept of hospitality. So all these concepts that we have that we need to keep, those are something that needs to be built on. And the toxic bits of our culture, like our ego or our
Mm.
anger or our,
Mm.
sort of sense of, oh, we know it, this is our land, or even not standing up for what you believe in, all those things are something that needs to be taught, not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily come naturally.
But I say, deriving from your discussion, sometimes media label these events as religious crisis. But I think the right term should be humanity in crisis. These are human issues. Nothing to do. Religion is being used or being maybe accused, but these are human issues, and as you said, the war machines and all those things. We shouldn't be blaming Jews. This is a policy for one nation, genociding, another nations, sort of a thing. Once our perspective is right, then maybe we can, look for a right solution instead of blaming religion or maybe a certain group of people. Then why not look at things from a human perspective?
That's a good point. Often what happens is, in my subject, which is called social anthropology, we look at culture,
Mm.
not at religion. And so what happens is often in the media confuses the two.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
example, they say that the media, for example, says, oh, honor killing is something
Mm.
that all Muslims do, but that's not correct.
Exactly.
Honor killing is a cultural thing. What Islam
Mm.
does is different. They give, for example, everybody is as equal as
Mm.
the teeth of a comb, or the Prophet
Exactly.
Muhammad, peace be upon him,
Mm.
said, treat your women well. And that was a very firm instruction that he gave. So
Mm.
religion and culture for a social anthropologist and a scholar is
Mm.
totally, whereas for the media journalists, for example, are not scholars. So they'll merge everything together and they'll mix it up. And that's why it's so important to have scholars presenting a community or a culture, whereas the journalist will give you a quick glimpse and mislead a whole population who's watching that channel. So the people who are watching will say, oh, Islam says this. What religion is this? This doesn't make
Mm.
sense. So then they'll take their anger out on a little boy who's at school, who may
Exactly.
be a Muslim boy in the
Mm.
West, or a little girl who's wearing a hijab.
Mm.
So these are things that need to be clarified and need to be separated.
Mm.
And also the role of the scholar becomes very important in
Exactly.
guiding and
Mm.
leading. And that's why I use the example of society like a body, like a human body,
Yeah. Mm.
where the brain or the head are the scholars
Yeah.
and they're giving direction. So for Pakistanis, they need to develop their scholars much more firmly and encourage them much more firmly. And for the policymakers, like you said, Dr. Saab, to rightly bring them in. They shouldn't just be wearing Gucci shoes and Gucci bags and all
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
themselves, but they should be bringing in scholars and saying, okay, now how do you give us direction? What are your thoughts? What are
Mm.
your ideas? What can we do to practice? How can we use these government funds to make our society better? So those are the
Mm.
practical ways to go about it. And nowadays you can do everything by Zoom. So you don't, for example, you talked about brain drain, where a lot of the scholars from Pakistan went abroad because maybe they didn't get a salary or a job or they weren't treated well or whatever the reason. But you
Mm.
can always put on the Zoom and, for policymakers, they can say,
Yeah.
let's get Professor Ahmed, or let's get Professor Naeem, or let's get another professor on Zoom and we bring in those ideas in our corridors of power and we implement them. So nothing is impossible if you
Exactly.
really want to do it and you have the
Exactly.
initiative.
Exactly. Well, one last question, because I know the time is, talking to you is always nice. Last question. Definitely, our this program will be, so many audience in my program are the new converts also. So when a person coming from a different faith background, accepting Islam, and then suddenly he sees a lot of problems, what would you suggest to a new convert? How to look at the situation and focus on Islam from your expertise background?
Thank you so much. That's a good question. First of all, I would say welcome to the community.
Lovely.
Welcome to Islam.
Mm.
And welcome to this rich civilization, because there's
Mm.
so much to learn, there's so much to gain from, and there's so much peace to attain from this way of life. I
Mm.
mean, this beautiful way of life where you have 5 times you stop, you meditate, you show your humility by putting your head down, you clean yourself, you
Mm.
connect with the beloved, with Rabbi.
Mm.
It's such a beautiful, there's so many beautiful points, there's so much history there. And in that history, like I talked about Andalusia, there's the Ottoman Empire, there's the Mughal Empire, there's so much to find out, and there's so much to read, and there's so much to know. And there's such beautiful examples from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, because recently, mashallah, we did Umrah,
MashaAllah.
and it was so inspiring to learn about his way and his method, and also his family.
Mm.
Beautiful people like Bibi Khatija and Fatima, Bibi Fatima, and Bibi Zainab, his
Mm.
granddaughter,
MashaAllah.
and the boldness and the
Mm.
strength of their character. So there's so much to gain from that. But yes, you are right. Politically, culturally, in terms of world events, it's a bit of a storm. And it's a hard time for the Ummah. So I would say gain strength from the beautiful Quran Sharif. All the
Mm.
answers are there. When
Okay.
I see sometimes the situation in the Middle East right now, I couldn't help crying every morning, every night when I see kids affected, mothers affected. It
Yeah.
does break my heart, because I do care very much for humanity, and especially the oppressed, especially the poor. I
Mm.
really, really, really feel sad and really feel depressed about it. But then I put on the Quran Sharif every day, and there's such beautiful wisdom, and there's such depth, and there's such healing there. So I would say, look at all those positive moments, go back to the
Mm.
source, go
MashaAllah.
back to the beauty, and also take a moment, step back, sit on that prayer mat, and just meditate and find the inner peace. And I loved this little beautiful um, doing or act of Rumi, Maulana Rumi.
Mm.
So what happened was, in the time of Maulana Rumi, the Mongols, who were
Yeah.
very fierce, and they would come and chop up everybody's head
Exactly.
and make pyramids. So they were very vicious.
Mm.
But Maulana Rumi, who was a beautiful, deep scholar who promoted the concept of love and respect for humanity, and
Exactly.
who came originally from Afghanistan, a beautiful
Mm.
land with beautiful people and a rich culture.
Yeah.
Maulana Rumi's concept was travel within.
Mm.
So when there's a storm around you, you have your inner soul, you journey within, get to know
Mm.
your own self, get to know your own compassion, your own humanity, help the poor, help the widow, help the
Mm.
orphan, do
Mm.
things around you to help society. But that is also the journey within. It's safar dar watan,
Mm.
which is the inner journey. So
Mm.
that's the journey. When there's a storm around you, you journey within yourself.
Mm.
And within that, you can, like Buddha, for example, or Prophet Zoroaster for Zoroastrianism, or Rasulullah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every time there was a crisis, all of them went up into the mountain or the forest and they withdrew. So that journey was the journey within their own soul. And that's the
Maybe,
journey that
yeah,
I'd recommend.
mashallah, mashallah. Maybe next episode we can do it inner journey in Islam.
Yeah, sure.
That would be lovely because listening to you is like I'm talking to Rumi in a female version.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that compliment, but I
Mashallah.
am nowhere near Rumi.
No, no, no. But
I am just
sometimes,
a very humble,
it depends
humble
on,
servant of the beloved.
yeah, mashallah. That's what I was thinking because right now we're talking intellectually, but last part of your discussion on the inner journey, these are unique ideas. And I think not only for new converts, but born Muslims also need to know about these ideas from a
Inshallah.
from a perspective, cultural anthropology, or maybe from a social point of view. Sometimes talking the same reality from a different perspective gives you more clarity, and sometimes this is what is lacking in Pakistan and other countries. Well, thank you very much, and inshallah, with the promise that we'll be back with another episode on the inner journey of Islam, maybe, and also you can include other religions like Christianity, Judaism. What are the commonalities about this inner journey and how to start it? And what are your personal experiences? You can share your story, how you came to realize this inner journey, what were the steps you took. So this could be a sort of a conversational guideline for the new people who want to start this new inner journey, right? So thank you very much. May Allah bless you, and with the inshallah, we will be back with another episode. And thank you very much. And thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. Appreciate all your work.
Mhm.
Appreciate all the podcasts you do and all the effort you put in, not just for Pakistan and South Asia, but internationally, because really all of these topics are something, like I keep saying,
Mhm.
need to be explored and need to be heard by everybody, whether it's in America or Malaysia
Exactly.
or in Pakistan or India, wherever we are. We
Mhm.
need to be talking about these sort of bridge building ideas much more
Exactly. These are very
than fight
important. These are,
each other.
and
So I really
also,
appreciate
yeah, mashallah, mashallah. And
it.
the reason I did not introduce you as the daughter of Sir Akbar S. Ahmed because I want the people to know you more.
Thank you very much.
This is my,
Appreciate all your
mashallah, mashallah.
kindness and effort. Thank you,
Thank you
Dr.
very
Saab.
much.